In the dim glow of morning, the soft clink of a coffee cup covers a simmering unease. A whispered question hangs in the air. Is this just coffee, or something more sinister? The scent, sharp, metallic, pricks my senses. Rain had fallen earlier, and the damp air clung to the windows like a warning. I sat at Nina's elegant dining table surrounded by polished silver and curated smiles. James leaned in, his voice smooth. "Don't you want to try the coffee I made especially for you, honey?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "My name is Christina. I'm 29, and I never thought I'd be wondering if my own husband was trying to poison me. 3 years of marriage, 3 years of accidents, food that made me sick, drinks that sent me to urgent care, always at Nina's house, always with that same innocent smile." She stirred her untouched coffee slowly, watching me. "James has become quite the barista lately," she said, lips curling. "He's been practicing different brewing methods. Just for you." That pause, that emphasis. "For you." It sent a chill down my spine. James had been spending more time at Nina's lately. Said they were planning a surprise for our anniversary. But something felt off. Whispers that stopped when I walked in. Texts I glimpsed on his phone. Messages from Nina. And now, this coffee. I forced a smile. "How thoughtful of you." The aroma rising from the cup wasn't right. It reminded me of the tea I drank last month. Tea that landed me in the ER. Doctors couldn't explain it. Nina swore she made it the same way she always did. I lifted the cup, pretending to sip. Their eyes locked. A glance. Quick, but telling. I felt my stomach twist. I checked my phone, making a show of it. "Oh, would you look at that? I need to make a quick call for work." I stood up. The room was silent. Outside, a breeze rustled the leaves. Inside, trust trembled. Was I paranoid? Or finally seeing the truth? Because sometimes danger doesn't knock. It brews quietly, in a cup made just for you. I took a shaky breath, heart pounding so loud I thought it might burst. Nina lifted that cup to her lips, slow, deliberate. The fragile dance of suspicion spun tighter around me. I wanted to shout, to pull her away, to make her see what I saw in her eyes. Something sneaky, something hiding in plain sight. But instead, I held back, watching everything unfold like a bad dream. How far does this go? That nagging feeling told me she wasn't just innocent. Maybe, just maybe, she knew. Her smile, her calm, all calculated. I'd been down this dark road before. Years of sickness, hospital visits, and all it seemed were linked to them. It's wild how a simple cup of coffee can turn into a weapon. I remember that sick, metallic tang. The alarms in my brain scream, but I can't look away. Because if I break her concentration now, would I see her panic? Or did she already know I was on to her? That's the thing. Trust is fragile. And in that dim, quiet study, everything felt like it could shatter at any second. What happens next? Does she slip up? Or has she already planned her next move? I never imagined control could feel this tense, or that family could be so treacherous. Christina stood in the dim light of the study, the scent of cinnamon filling the air, a scent she hadn't realized she'd been craving until now. The smell was a ghost of her childhood, echoing memories of her mother's voice, warning her about trust. Her mother's eyes had darkened whenever betrayal was mentioned, and now, that same unease crept back as she watched Nina collapse in front of her. Nina's shaky hands were impossible to ignore. The cup in her hand trembled, and then, without warning, Nina's face went pale. "James!" Her voice cracked, panic seeping through her words. "Something's wrong." James looked up, his face transforming from confusion to horror as he saw the cup. In a flash, he jumped up, knocking over his chair in his desperation. "Nah, what's happening?" His hands were trembling now, his voice rising. Nina tried to stand, but her legs betrayed her. She stumbled, clutching the edge of the table for support. "James, What did you put in that coffee?" Christina's voice was steady, but her insides were on fire with fear. Without another word, Christina stepped out of the study. Her phone was already recording. James rushed to Nina's side, his face ashen. "That wasn't supposed to be your cup," he whispered. The air thickened with tension, and Christina's heart skipped. What had they been planning? What had she just witnessed? Nina's eyes went wide with realization, and she gasped, "Call an ambulance, please." Christina didn't hesitate. Her hands were steady as she dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency?" The dispatcher's calm voice cut through the chaos. "My sister-in-law appears to be having a severe reaction to something in her coffee," Christina said, keeping her voice clear. "She's conscious but having violent tremors. I need an ambulance right away." Nina's eyes locked onto Christina's as the dispatcher spoke, but there was no cold calculation in her gaze anymore. Now, all Christina saw was fear. "Christina," Nina whispered, her voice hoarse, "you switched it. You knew." The dispatcher's voice came through. "The ambulance is on its way. Please stay on the line." James was growing frantic, his voice high-pitched. "Nah, what's happening? That wasn't supposed to be—" "Shut up, James," Nina snapped, her fury cutting through her pain. "This is all your fault. You said it would just make her sick enough to miss the board meeting next week. You promised it wouldn't be traced." Christina's blood ran cold as the truth hit her. The board meeting. The one she was supposed to present at. The one where her future was at stake. Suddenly, the danger surrounding her wasn't just about Nina or James. It was about everything she had trusted, everything she thought was safe. In that moment, Christina realized just how treacherous the people closest to her could be. Could she escape this web they had spun, or was she already too deep? The scent of bergamot from the tea lingered in Christina's memory, sharp and bitter now. She remembered the morning light slanting across the kitchen tiles, James's hand brushing hers as he handed her the cup. His smile had been warm, but something in his eyes flickered, too quick to name. Her stomach had churned before the first sip. The porcelain felt cold against her lips, and Nina's voice from the hallway, cheerful, too cheerful, echoed in her ears. That moment, once mundane, now pulsed with betrayal. Months of building tension, Nina's odd behavior, James's strange insistence, it all clicked into place. The tea, the breakfast incident, the things she'd brushed off as accidents, weren't accidents at all. "Nina." Christina's voice was barely a whisper, but the weight of the words crushed her chest. "You were supposed to keep me home, during the Johnson presentation, but I went anyway." Nina doubled over in pain, clutching her stomach. "I didn't want to do this," she gasped, "but you were too good at everything. James promised it would just make you miss the meeting. He promised it wouldn't be traced." Christina felt the room spin. The sound of sirens grew louder, piercing the quiet of the house, but it was nothing compared to the rising panic in her veins. "What are you talking about?" James backed away, his face drained of color. "Nina, stop. You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying," Nina hissed, her voice slurred. "We've been planning this for months, ever since you started outshining me in every meeting. You were supposed to be unreliable, a liability." The weight of Nina's confession hit Christina like a freight train. This wasn't just about James or Nina. This was about everything. Her career, her trust, her entire life. She had been nothing but a pawn in their game. And now she had proof. The paramedics burst in, and Christina quickly stepped aside to let them work. As they loaded Nina onto the stretcher, Christina's heart raced. She stopped recording and immediately sent the video to her private email. Then she forwarded it to her lawyer. The truth was out now. The game had changed. "I'll ride with her to the hospital," Christina said to the paramedics, her voice unwavering. "I need to make sure my sister-in-law gets the proper treatment." James stood frozen, his carefully constructed web of lies falling apart in front of him. His worst nightmare was unraveling, and Christina wasn't about to let him escape this time. The emergency room at Nashville General was a blur of activity. Doctors rushed to treat Nina, and Christina stood at the edge of it all, clutching her phone tightly. The recording was in her hand, the final piece of evidence she needed. "Nina Anderson's family?" a nurse called out, breaking through the tension. Christina stood up, her eyes scanning the waiting room for James. He hadn't been there for the past 20 minutes, claiming something about parking the car, but he was nowhere to be found now, and neither was his excuse. Christina's breath caught as she stepped into the sterile emergency room, her heart racing with every step. The sound of Nina's condition echoed in her mind. Toxins. The nurse had said it so casually, but the truth hit like a punch to the gut. Nina's body was poisoned, and Christina was about to uncover the twisted layers of betrayal she'd never seen coming. "How is she?" Christina's voice was tight with dread, each word forced out like it weighed a ton. The nurse's face was grim. "Stabilized for now, but there's something in her blood, something dangerous." Christina didn't have to wait long. Dr. Phillips, her gaze sharp and focused, took one look at the recorded audio from brunch and her face shifted. The professional calm was gone. "This isn't accidental," she murmured, scribbling quickly on her tablet. "This is deliberate contamination." The moment of clarity hit Christina harder than she ever expected. The sweet smell of cinnamon from that brunch, the soft clink of the cups, everything from that morning felt so innocent, yet it had all been a setup. As Christina steadied herself, she saw him, James, pale, sweating, and caught in the act. "Christina, I can explain," he called out, stepping toward her, desperation written all over his face. But Christina was done listening. "Stay back," Dr. Phillips said, calling for security as James stammered in denial, his hands raised. "It's a misunderstanding," he pleaded, but the words fell flat. Christina wasn't done. She pulled out the texts James thought he had deleted, the ones that laid bare his plotting, his conspiracy to take Nina down before the Henderson presentation. "These just friendly conversations?" she asked, voice steady despite the storm inside her. James froze. The color drained from his face as he realized she'd found it all. "You went through my phone?" His voice cracked. "Yes," she said simply, pulling the final card from her sleeve. "And I'm going to find out if the toxins in Nina's system match the ones that have been making me sick, too." Her hands clenched around her phone, the weight of everything finally sinking in. It wasn't just Nina now. Christina was in the fight for her own life. And James? He wouldn't escape this time. Christina's world was about to shatter. She had never suspected that behind the comforting touch of family, something much darker was brewing. As she sat in the sterile hospital room, her mind replayed the details. Each betrayal, each subtle clue, the scent of antiseptic mixed with her fear, the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Everything felt suffocating. Her trembling hand reached for the glass, but then Nina's voice sliced through the silence like a knife. "I've been recording him all along," Nina whispered. The room seemed to close in as Christina froze. The person she thought was her enemy, the one she feared, wasn't the mastermind after all. James, her husband, stood there, his facade crumbling before her. He had been hiding his secrets, his lies, but it wasn't just him. No, it was Nina, the real threat. The sinister smile on Nina's face made everything click. This was her plan. Christina's eyes widened as the truth, the real betrayal, unfolded. "Wait, what are you talking about?" James stammered, his voice shaking, but it was too late. The game was over. "How long?" Christina's voice was cold, controlled, the rage bubbling beneath. "How long have you been poisoning me? Was it you at the Christmas party too?" James didn't answer. His silence spoke louder than any words could. Behind him, Nina lay in her hospital bed, monitors beeping. The confident woman from before was now a fragile figure, exposed. Detective Mendoza arrived just as everything was coming to light, and Christina felt a strange peace. Finally, everything would be uncovered. No more secrets. No more lies. As the detective reviewed her notes, Christina handed over the text messages. Every hospitalization, every missed sign, it was all in the record. Nina, who had seemed so sweet, had been plotting the downfall of her sister-in-law all along. Christina was done with the lies. She was done with the manipulation. But she wasn't done fighting. The room was thick with tension, every breath feeling like it sliced through the stale air. Christina's fingers trembled as she clutched her phone tighter, heart pounding. Her mind replayed the snippets she'd eavesdropped on. James's voice whispering plans she never imagined. Nina's sly laughter behind closed doors. How long has this been going on? What if everything she'd believed was a lie? The scent of rain drifted through the cracked window, a subtle reminder that the storm was still outside, unpredictable, dangerous. Her palms grew clammy. James's charm had always seemed so genuine, so caring. Was it all a facade? And Nina, with her sweet smile hiding something darker, perhaps even plotting her downfall right now. Every second that passed felt like a countdown. Was this it? Would she finally uncover the truth? Or was the darkness lurking even closer, ready to swallow her whole? She fought to steady her breath, whispering into the silence, "What is James really planning?" The shadows closed in. The weight of betrayal pressed down. And then, the phone buzzed louder. Her stomach clenched. She hesitated, but knew she couldn't ignore it anymore. Every detail, every overheard word, everything started to align, and she was beginning to realize she'd been playing into a deadly game. The lines between trust and treachery blurred. She glanced toward the doorway, heart hammering. Her senses sharpened. The faint rustle of leaves outside, the faint hum of the house, everything echoing her rising fears. Was there even safety left? Or had her entire world been a carefully constructed lie? The air seemed to crackle with anticipation. She drew in a shaky breath. This was more than just suspicion. It was her fight for survival. She whispered into the silence, "What is James really planning?" Again, no answer, just the chilling pull of unknown darkness waiting to be exposed. The scent of cinnamon still lingered in the air, warm and familiar, until it wasn't. Christina sat at the kitchen table, clutching her mug a little too tight. The soft hum of morning radio mixed with the rustle of leaves outside. But that morning, everything felt off. The coffee tasted bitter, like a secret hiding beneath its surface. She looked at James, who was humming softly as he stirred his own cup, his charm a little too polished. Her heart quickened. Why did the hair on her neck stand up? She remembered Nina's eyes flicking toward the coffee, quick and nervous, then away. That fleeting glance now haunted her. She'd always thought of Nina as kind, always laughing a bit too loudly, acting so sweet, but now a dark shadow crept into the corners of her mind. Her skin crawled as a chill ran down her spine. Was that a warning? Or just her anxious imagination? She caught James's eyes, and in that moment she wondered, what is he hiding? Was his charm just a mask? The house, usually filled with warmth, now felt cold and secretive. Every sound seemed sharper, the rustle of leaves, the distant siren, everything echoing the growing dread in her chest. The line between trust and betrayal blurred so suddenly, so painfully. Her fingers tightened around the mug. Could she really trust anyone anymore? Or was this just the calm before the storm? Her breath hitched. "What is James really planning?" she whispered into the emptiness. No reply, just the strange silence that now felt deafening. The shadows seemed to inch closer, the air thick with secrets waiting to surface. She drew in a shaky breath, feeling the weight of betrayal pressing down. That's when she saw Nina's phone light up, a new message flickering on screen. Everything in her started to click into place. Details she'd dismissed before, places she'd ignored. The puzzle pieces weren't matching. They were jagged, dangerous. Suddenly, her world felt fragile, like it could crumble at any second. And she knew this was more than suspicion. It was her fight for survival. She whispered once more, "What is James really planning?" Her voice barely a tremor in the tense silence. She waited, heart pounding. There was no answer, just the silent darkness creeping closer, waiting to swallow everything whole. Christina sat, feeling the weight of silence settle around her. The air in the room was thick, like the calm before a storm. Her eyes flickered to James, sitting across from her, his smile too perfect, his eyes too careful. And then Nina, always the sweet, innocent sister-in-law, suddenly seemed so distant. There was something about the way she avoided eye contact, the way her hands twitched. Christina couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. But what was it? Was she just being paranoid? Her chest tightened. This was supposed to be her safe space. But now, every corner of the house felt dark and foreign. Could the people closest to her really betray her? Christina's fingers tightened around the edge of the sofa, her thoughts racing. She wasn't crazy. Something was happening, something she couldn't ignore. She stood up, her legs shaky, and moved toward the locked cabinet behind the couch. Her heart pounded in her chest as she fumbled with the key. The faint scent of rain seeped through the window, but all Christina could smell was the fear swirling in the air around her. The door creaked open. Inside, an old video recorder sat, flickering on. She hit play, and there it was, her own face on the screen, staring back at her, mocking her. Her heart froze. The footage was from inside her own home. But there was more. James and Nina, laughing together, whispering in secret. Too close, too intimate. Christina's breath caught in her throat. She could feel her world shatter in that moment. Her own reflection now seemed like the ultimate betrayal. She backed away from the screen, her body cold with dread. This wasn't just a secret. It was a lie. Her home, her sanctuary, was now a prison of deceit. She thought she knew her husband. She thought she knew her sister-in-law. But this was more than betrayal. It was a carefully orchestrated trap. The silence in the room was deafening now. She didn't know who to trust. Could she even trust herself anymore? With her mind reeling, Christina began to piece things together. The puzzle clearer now. James had been hiding something from the start. He wasn't the loving husband she thought she knew. He was playing a dangerous game. And Nina? She was always more than just the sweet, innocent sister-in-law. What were they hiding? And what would they do next? The fight for her safety had just begun. And Christina wasn't about to let them win. The courtroom was suffocating with tension. My heart pounded as I sat there staring at James, the man I once trusted with everything. His eyes didn't meet mine, his face pale, a mere shell of the man I thought I knew. Nah, always the picture of confidence, now shrank into her seat, her hands trembling. The air was thick with unspoken truths, and I couldn't tear my eyes away from them. What had they done? What twisted plan had they been hiding from me all this time? The prosecutor's voice cut through the silence, but I barely heard her. The evidence was laid out, clear and damning. The bottles, the notes, the secret texts, they were all there. The whispering laughter I'd once dismissed as innocent now felt like the cruelest joke. How had I not seen it? Why hadn't I trusted my instincts? As Dr. Phillips detailed how they'd slowly poisoned me, increasing the dosages over time, a cold wave of realization crashed over me. They had planned this. They wanted me gone. The betrayal was so deep, I almost couldn't breathe. I turned away from Na, fighting the rage that threatened to explode. "I'm ready to make my statement now," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. The trial dragged on for weeks, each day feeling like an eternity. But when the verdict was finally read, there was no celebration, no sense of victory. Just a hollow relief. James and Na were found guilty of attempted murder and conspiracy. They had plotted my destruction, and they almost succeeded. What would happen to them now? Would this nightmare ever end? Or was the real fight only just beginning? The judge's words sliced through the courtroom. The premeditated nature of these actions carried out against a family member over an extended period demands the maximum sentence. I watched as they were led away in handcuffs. I thought about how greed and jealousy had twisted two people I once trusted into something unrecognizable. Their business, their reputations, their freedom, sacrificed in an attempt to destroy me. 1 year after the trial, I stood at the podium of the Nashville Business Leaders Conference preparing for my keynote speech. The irony wasn't lost on me. This was the very opportunity Nina had tried to stop me from reaching. The Henderson account, which she and James had desperately tried to steal, had led to even more major clients, cementing me as one of the top marketing executives in the region. Success isn't just about talent or hard work, I began, my eyes sweeping across the sea of faces. It's about integrity, about building genuine relationships based on trust. I paused, letting the words sink in. Sometimes the biggest threats to our success come from those closest to us, but surviving those challenges makes us stronger. After the speech, several young professionals came up to ask how I'd kept my composure through everything. I looked them in the eyes, steady and sure. I focused on what I could control. I gathered evidence, trusted my instincts, and refused to let fear stop me from pursuing my goals. Later that evening, I received an email from the Henderson client, confirming they were renewing their contract for another 3 years. I smiled, reflecting on how differently things could have turned out if I hadn't trusted myself that day. The next morning, I opened the local paper, where a small article caught my eye. The headline made my heart race. Local marketing executive overcomes personal betrayal, continues to thrive. It felt almost too good to be true, until I saw a familiar name in the byline. Was this just a coincidence, or was someone still watching me from the shadows? Christina stands in the quiet morning light, the weight of betrayal pressing deep inside. The news, James and Nina headed to prison, should sting, but instead, a strange calm settles over her. The scent of rain lingers, the soft rustle of leaves whispering secrets. Isn't it strange how clarity can arrive when you expect chaos? She takes a slow breath, feeling the crisp air fill her lungs, and realizes her victory isn't in punishment. It's in moving on, in rewriting her story. Her eyes drift to the fresh proposal on her desk. The past tried to hide her, tried to break her, but she stands resilient. She knows her future lies not in revenge, but in success. Far from the shadows of deceit, she begins to believe. Her happiness is now her own, her life hers to build anew.